It started on a perfectly ordinary night, the kind you forget as soon as it's over. My wife and I were on the couch, the TV droning on in the background, half watching some forgettable movie. That's when we first heard it. The soft, sing-song voice of our daughter, Shelley, drifting down the hallway from her room. It was more than just talking to her dolls. There was a rhythm to it, a back and forth punctuated by faint, airy laughter. It sounded like a real conversation. I glanced at the clock on the cable box. 10:27 p.m., way past her bedtime. My wife, Sarah, looked at me, her brow furrowed with the same thought. "Who on earth is she talking to at this hour?" she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the movie's soundtrack. We got up, the floorboards creaking softly under our weight, and tiptoed down the hall. We weren't trying to be stealthy to catch her doing something wrong, just not wanting to startle her. Her bedroom door was cracked open, a sliver of warm light spilling into the dark hallway. Inside, the giggling was clearer. "Shelley?" Sarah called out gently as she pushed the door fully open. The room was bathed in the soft glow of her little astronaut nightlight. Shelley froze mid-sentence, a doll clutched in her hand. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by her plastic and stuffed animal kingdom. She turned her head, a wide, innocent smile spreading across her face. "I was just talking to my friend," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. I stepped in behind Sarah, my eyes scanning the room. The window was locked, the curtains drawn. There was no one there. Just Shelley, her toys, and the quiet hum of the nightlight. "What friend, sweetie?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Shelley pointed a small finger towards the small closet at the end of her room. "She's behind the door," she explained, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "We play together every night." A cold, unwelcome chill snaked its way up my spine. The closet door was just slightly ajar, maybe an inch, revealing nothing but a thick, impenetrable darkness inside. I saw Sarah swallow hard. "All right, honey, it's time for bed," she said, her voice a little too quick, a little too high. She moved to Shelley, brushing a stray strand of hair from her forehead. We tucked her in, kissed her goodnight, and made sure the closet door was clicked firmly shut before we left. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I kept replaying Shelley's words, her casual point towards the dark closet. Around 2 a.m., I was jolted awake by a sound from the baby monitor on my nightstand. It was whispering. I could clearly make out Shelley's voice, but there was another one too. It was softer, raspier, like dry leaves skittering across pavement, or a breath right against the speaker. I couldn't make out the words, but the presence of that second voice made the hair on my arm stand on end. I nudged Sarah, but she was fast asleep. I told myself I was just tired, imagining things. The next morning, Shelley came down for breakfast with dark, puffy circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted. I knelt down beside her chair. "Did you have a tough time sleeping, sweetie? Were you up late?" She just stirred her cereal, avoiding my eyes. "She doesn't like it when I sleep too long," she mumbled. My heart skipped a beat. "Who, Shelley? Who doesn't like it?" She finally looked up, her gaze drifting towards the corner of the ceiling, as if she were looking at someone standing right behind me. "My friend," she whispered. The days that followed were a slow-motion descent into a nightmare we couldn't wake up from. It started with small things. Toys we'd find neatly arranged in a perfect circle in the middle of her room in the morning. A tiny handprint smudged on the outside of her second-story bedroom window, far too high for her to reach. We tried to rationalize it. An overactive imagination, a vivid dream, a weird coincidence. Kids make things up. They have imaginary friends. That's normal, right? We told ourselves it was normal. But it was getting harder to believe. The feeling in the house shifted. It felt heavier, colder, especially near Shelley's room. Sometimes, walking past her closed door, I'd get the distinct feeling of being watched. We started arguing in hushed whispers after Shelley went to bed, our fear and confusion bubbling over into frustration. The breaking point came one evening at dinner. Shelley came to the table, holding out her arm. "Look what we drew," she said proudly. My fork clattered onto my plate. Down her small forearm were angry red scratches. They weren't random. They were long, thin, deliberate marks that almost looked like strange, spidery symbols. Sarah grabbed her arm gently, her face pale with horror. "Shelley, what happened? Who did this to you?" Shelley's smile faltered. She looked down at the scratches, her expression unreadable. "She told me to draw them," she said quietly. "She said if I make the marks, she can stay here forever." A profound, bone-deep terror seized me. This wasn't an imaginary friend anymore. This was something else, something malevolent. That night, we were woken by laughter, not just Shelley's giggle, but two distinct voices, harmonizing in a joyful yet utterly chilling chorus. It echoed through the baby monitor, loud and clear. Sarah grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. We didn't even speak. We both scrambled out of bed and ran down the hall to Shelley's room. We burst through the door. The room was cold, unnaturally so. Shelley was sitting up in her bed, a wide, vacant smile on her face. Her eyes were fixed on the closet. The closet door, which I knew for a fact I had closed, was now wide open, a gaping maw of blackness. "She's here," Shelley whispered, her voice filled with a strange, ecstatic reverence. She slowly raised her arm and pointed into the darkness of the closet. "She wants to meet you." And then, from the depths of that oppressive dark, a voice whispered back. It was a perfect, chilling mimicry of our daughter's sweet voice. "Hello, Mommy. Hello, Daddy." We stood frozen, trapped between our smiling child and the horrifying void that had just spoken to us. The entity in the closet had been a student, learning, listening, waiting. And now, class was over. It had learned enough to pretend. It had learned enough to stay.